Let's see here. Yeah, so I would say I made a huge mistake with regards to Teppen. I wouldn't say it's a huge mistake, but based on what I've seen for the next three episodes that following the first three, I would say Lacrosse Recoil is better. Originally, I had the July best animes as Teppen and Yurei Deco. Yurei Deco is still there because it's still interesting. But Teppen seems to be something that is going up and down. Now, by the time you reach your fifth episode, that's the time that the introduction to all of the five different girls have already made their little kind of stand up comedic acts. Or at least this part of each of one of their story are per each episode. So the problem lies in after that is finished, you now have to proceed forward with the Grand Prix, with them trying to win the Grand Prix, with them trying to do the Grand Prix, with them trying to outshine each other in a competition. So far, there's no indication that there's a need to achieve the Grand Prix, unless this Teppen, the Grand Prix of Teppen, is not within this season. It's not going to be present in the season. It's going to be in another season. So why have an anime about trying to win something in a season if it's not going to be won in the season? Or if the Grand Prix is something that's simply picking or choosing of a girl who is the funniest by seeing how they behave and interact with each other within a secluded environment, within a dorm. That's not really grand in any sort of way whatsoever. It's just a story of different girls trying to be comedians and their various experience in life. There's no Grand Prix about that. The Grand Prix is something that a lot of people are fighting to win. So there's no indication that they've reached the Grand Prix whatsoever yet, or that there's an indication that they're going towards that. But it's slowly showing that they are going towards that. For instance, in the fourth episode, each of the episodes are slowly getting funnier and funnier. Whereas in episode 5, it felt like it was dropping off, but in episode 4, it was funnier than episode 3, and it was funnier than episode 2, and I think it's on par with episode 1, that they're both about the same in episode 1. But the comedy in each of the episodes are very slowly snail escalating. And that's the main problem. These comedies are slow and snail escalating. They're not escalating at a decent amount. If something is funny, it's one or two things that within each episode that are funny, and everything else is mundane or average at best. So even though I had picked this as one of the best anime for July of 2022, I based that on the first three episodes. And I can only base that on the first three episodes for July of 2022 because we're now in August of 2022, which means I didn't have enough time to even judge this anime when it was released in the month it was released, because there are not enough episodes to classify it to be judged within that month. There were only 3 episodes within the month of July to judge this anime, to say that out of all the animes that were released in the month of July, this was the most logical based on its 3 first episodes. But now that I look back on it, after the next 3 episodes that came out, which is episodes 4, 5, and 6, I would say Lacrosse Recoil is a better anime than this. The comedy in this anime is average, not because it's an overall comedy anime, it's because their attempts at their comedic act, is lackluster. So they're trying to win the Teppen Grand Prix of their comedic acts, but every one of their acts aren't that great to begin with, of all the 5 girls. So I'm wondering, who are the people who are making the decisions for these characters in this anime to act out these type of lame ass comedies because they're not funny at all, and they need to fix this if they're planning on having a second season or a third season or a fourth season. Because if this is a one shot, one done anime, then this is simply like Aliens Fire Team Elite. You know, a one time to show that we can do this anime. It's a small project. We just gets paid like this budget, and then we'll be done with it. If that people don't understand, whatever you do, no matter what it does, is part of your legacy. Like episode 4 is this girl, and she wants to Mako, and she wants to make sure her other friends Saika and Hikari knows that don't know that she isn't poor. She wants to be known as rich because celebrity girls are also rich, but she's actually poor. So it was funny how she started to use cryptocurrency and other things in order to escalate herself to get even more money. And then at the end of the episode shows that it's not money that her friends value, it's her friendship. So the episode was more about her friendship than it was about money. And the comedy was within that friendship and the journey of the episode. Now that was episode 4. So the funniest thing was her trying to get cryptocurrency to make money. But that's it. Everything else wasn't that funny except that thing. And then you go straight to episode 5. And episode 5 was the girl from Invaders. The girls from Invaders. And I was curious about their comedy acts because I said at the beginning, I believe Celebrity and Invaders might be the people who are going to win, possibly the last two that are going to win the Teppen Grand Prix. If Young YY does not win it, it might be Celebrity or Invaders. But now I'm thinking about it, 3 episodes even further than that, it's more likely that Celebrity might actually win the Teppen Grand Prix or Young YY because Invaders aren't funny whatsoever at all. In fact, their comedy act is based on aliens and logic of aliens. So this entire anime right here, this episode, was centered around trying to make a comedic act out of suspense and the bizarrety of alien life. How can you make something like that? How can you execute aliens and craziness and bizarrety of aliens into a comedic stand-up act? Whoever did the script, whoever did the script for this episode, for this specific episode, did a very bad script because they're stuck on this van and they're going towards the school, they're going back to school, but they're in a time loop. And how can you make them being in a time loop something that's funny if all that they're doing is repeating the same thing over and over again in the time loop? How can you make something like that funny enough that your audience could buy it, that you could believe it? You need someone who's a real good comedian to sell something that would repeat itself over and over again without annoying your audience. And they weren't able to do that within this episode. And then Invaders turned out to be even worse than the Kingdom. I forgot the name of the first name of the girls. Akadai Kingdom. So originally I had Akadai Kingdom as the worst comedic stand-up girls, but now that I look at it, the Invaders are probably worse than them. So if any of the girls are going to win the Teppen Grand Prix, it'll probably be Young YY or Celebrity. So I don't understand, but to be honest with you, none of these girls in this anime are really funny with their stand-up. Not the overall comedy of the anime, it's how they're trying to execute their stand-up with delivering what they're trying to tell as part of their story, what they experience in life as part of their story, and then they put it into their stand-up. It does not work, and it's not working. It hasn't been working since I guess episode 1 it worked, but episode 2 it didn't work. Episode 3 it didn't work that well. Episode 4 No, episode 4 didn't work well either with the stand up. The stand up is when they get in front of the mic and tell their audience, their viewing audience, both you and the people inside of the anime, what they experience in life and how they use that with regards to their comedic act. So every time they stand up in front of the mic and they deliver their stand up, their comedic act, what they experience in the anime as their journey towards them being stand up comedians is funnier than their actually comedic acts behind the mic. So it makes no damn sense. Um, that should be the center. That should be the centerpiece of the anime. Them standing behind the mic and them being funny behind the mic. If the anime is about them being the best stand-up comedic act, that should be the centerpiece, not to focus on the funniness around in their life, but the funniness what they're doing behind the mic. I don't understand, and I don't think this anime is going to last for too long and stand the test of time if this is the route it's going. I believe I believe Lycoris Recoil should have been my number one. Should have been placed in my number one. The only reason I didn't have Lycoris Recoil as my number one is because Lycoris Recoil was kind of predictable to me. Even though it had a better set story and better characters, it's predictable to me. Even though the characters in Teppen are more complex than the characters in Lycoris Recoil based on each of them being individuals, as towards where the story is going as a whole in Lycoris Recoil is better than the story in Teppen. So now that I look back on it, I'm thinking about it. The direction to what Lycoris Recoil is going is far more smoother than the direction that Teppen is going. So that might have been a boo boo on my part. And I really wanted to put Lycoris Recoil as my number one. I was fighting to decide between Lycoris Recoil and Teppen. That's why I put Lycoris Recoil and Isekai Oji-san as substitutes to my number ones, my two best anime for July. But now that I think about it, Lycoris Recoil is better than Teppen after seeing the next three episodes, because now you go into episode number 6, and they're both all three of them are saying bye to Seiji, who's going off to do some type of competition overseas, and they all have to stay inside of the I guess stay on campus for 4 days until he returned. 4 days, and so they destroyed the house. At the end of the episode, he comes back. He sees the entire house destroyed, and from the time that they were staying inside the house to the time that they destroyed the house, nothing was funny whatsoever. There were probably one or two things within the entire episode. I believe it was a 25 minutes to 30 minutes episode. And within that 25 to 30 minutes, I only found like two things that were funny within the entire episode. Not regards to the overall comedy, but two things with regards to how can they use these things in their stand-up comedic act. And when they did their stand-up towards the end, Bullet Konoishi, they did their stand-up towards the end, state that what happened to them in the episode number 6, even the audience that were sitting down listening to them as they gave their stand-up little thing behind the mic to the audience felt like you didn't get any reaction from them. There was no applause, there was no nothing. They just were people sitting there listening to them, and I felt like the way that audience felt. I felt like, what the hell was the point of this episode? This episode was supposed to be better than the 5th episode, which it was. This episode was to be better than the 4th episode, which it wasn't. This episode was to be better than the 3rd episode, which it was. This episode was to be better than the 2nd episode, which it also was. This episode was supposed to be better than the 1st episode, which it wasn't. It was on par with the 1st episode. So this is what I'm trying to say with regards to Teppen. Teppen seems to be going in an up and down synthwave effect, or a synth harmony effect. It's like your internet. Your internet goes up and it goes down, and then it goes up and it goes down again. So every episode, like episode 1 was good, then episode 2 fell down, then episode 3 was better than episode 2, and then episode 4 fell down. Well, no, episode 4 went up, and then episode 5 fell down, and then episode 6 went up again. So it's like a steady climb. It goes up, and then it goes down, and then it climbs up again, then it goes down, and then it climbs up, and then it goes up again, and then it falls down, and then it goes up, and then it goes up again, and then it goes up again, but then it falls down again. So it's steadily, the comedy is steadily going up and steadily going up, but it keeps falling down. It's not supposed to be falling down. So we're on episode 6 now of Teppen, and it seems to be standard at best. It doesn't seem to be a great anime. It's a standard anime at best. And I should have put Lycoris Recoil before this, but this is not a bad anime. It's still not a bad anime. It's a good, it's a well done anime. It's just not a funny comedic stand up or journey anime with regards to what it's trying to achieve. It's trying to show that these girls on their journey towards being stand up comedians to win Teppen Grand Prix are funny enough to win the Teppen Grand Prix based on what they're experiencing in life. So far, there's no Grand Prix. I haven't seen or heard of anything. 2, there's no indication to when the Grand Prix is going to start. 3, I don't even know if the Grand Prix is something that exists. That the Grand Prix might actually be an evaluation of all these girls together trying to be the best stand-up comedian inside of the dorm. Who knows what that is? But there's no presence of the Grand Prix yet, and I have this strange feeling that the Grand Prix might actually be something that will show up towards the end of the season or in the next season. So what's the point of having a Grand Prix if we haven't gotten to anything that shows the Grand Prix yet? Yes, there are preliminaries. Yes, there are sign-ons to check, to evaluate. There's evaluations, then there are preliminaries, then there's challenges, and then there's subfinals, and then there's finals. So I don't know where this is so far with regards to the Teppen Grand Prix. They already passed the acceptance into being part of the dorm, which means they already passed the acceptance of possibly being considered to be part of the Grand Prix. Them being inside the dorm and they're trying to see who's the best comedian amongst themselves might be part of the challenge of being part of the Grand Prix. But have they truly taken the preliminaries yet? Have they? There's no indication that they eliminated prior girls before getting accepted into the dorm. So we must assume that the preliminaries are still, because it stated that the preliminaries were over and that these girls were the ones that were selected. So, but if the preliminaries are over and these girls were the ones that were selected, so is this now the challenge phase to see if they're willing to be the runner-ups to be selected to go into the Grand Prix. So if these are the runner-ups to be selected to go into the Grand Prix, is this anime, this season, a selection of girls to go into the Grand Prix? So if this is the selection season, that's what I'm trying to say. No indication that this is actually the start of the Grand Prix, or this is the preliminaries, or not the preliminaries, but or the post Grand Prix, or the pre Grand Prix. Well, I wouldn't say post because no one has won yet. The pre Grand Prix or the leading up to Grand Prix, or the sub competitions before the Grand Prix, the final round, or before the final World Series. You know, you have the preliminary series. There's no indication that they're in the preliminaries right now, before they go to the World Series. So who knows what the hell is going on? The anime does not explain in detail. All it says that they passed and they were the ones that were accepted and they're in the dorms. But I don't understand, based on these episodes, episode 4, 5, and 6, there's no indications whatsoever that there's anything that to show that they're leading to the Grand Prix. That there's no tension within these animes to show that these girls truly want to be the winners of this Grand Prix, or simply want to be the best of this Grand Prix. This simply feels, each and every one of these episodes simply feels like the daily life of girls in college. That's what it feels like. The daily life of girls in college. They are part of something, they won something, and they're going to get into something. But this feel like the daily life of girls before they go towards the Grand Prix. So at the beginning of the first episode, it says they were the ones selected to be part of the Teppen Grand Prix. But there's nothing to lead to the Teppen Grand Prix yet, and we're already into the 6th episode. So I don't know what the hell is going on, but this is not good. 6th episode in. The 7th episode better be fire, man, because it's like a Naruto. The first 2 or 3 episodes of Naruto were alright. They were just introducing characters, and then you get the Kakashi. You have to get the bell from Kakashi that follows in certain episodes after, and then they get their first mission, episode 6, or they go on their mission, episode 6, and then they meet Sabuzo and them in episode 7, and then they move forward from there on, and that's how that goes. So the tension really rises once they get onto their mission, even before they get onto their mission, when they competed against Kakashi to try to get the belt. That's when the tension of the anime started to rise. Are you worthy enough to be a shinobi? So it should be the same in this anime. Are you worthy enough to be a comedic act, to be part of Teppen? And they were all selected because they were all worthy, but now it's not about them being selected to be worthy. It's more so about them selected to be worthy towards the anime itself, pushing the anime forward in itself. So they have to show strong comedic acts based on their performance in episode 5, episode 6, and episode 7. Episode 6 and episode 7. Because the first 5 episodes were simply to introduce the 5 different girl teams. Each one of them had their original episode. Episode 1 was Young YY. Episode 2 was Akadai Kingdom. Episode 3 was Bolicon Munishi. Episode 4 was Celebrity here. Episode 5 was Invaders. And episode 6 was after all the girls had their own personal episodes. Episode 6 was supposed to be the episode that to show, okay, now it's time to them to get into going towards seeing how they could win the Teppen Grand Prix. Or what is the Teppen Grand Prix? How do you win the Teppen Grand Prix? Are there any descriptions? How is certain things set up? How is the chessboard of Teppen set up? How is the escalation of information set on the chalkboard of what process to win the Grand Prix is explained in the anime, and nothing is explained. So episode 6 is simply just another episode of Teppen. Just episode 6 just includes all the girls this time. That's all it did. It includes all the girls from episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all at the same time in one episode. So I am guessing right now that episode 6 was simply the episode where all the girls are going to be in, even though Bullet Konoichi was the main character to be the person standing behind the mic in this one. Bullet Konoichi again. Apparently they have some fancy stuff with Bullet Konoichi. But all the girls were present in this anime this time. So I can only assume that after episode 6, coming episode 7, that's when we're going to get into the Grand Prix stuff, or at least more information about the Grand Prix. But that's just my assumption. Now, if that does not happen, if there's no explanation toward what the Grand Prix is, how to win the Grand Prix, and pushing the girls forward towards that end goal, or towards the other girls who are in other schools trying to win the Grand Prix, since there are many different dormitories or many different girls going after the Grand Prix. If there's no indication towards things related to the Grand Prix, and if the comedy does not escalate even greater than it did in episode 6, then I seriously think Teppen is not as good as it should be. That it might have been an anime simply done so the people who made the anime studio drives to say prove themselves even more that they could do this type of anime. Now, just doing the type of anime is one thing, but these things are part of your legacy, part of your livelihood, what you're leaving behind. You don't want people to start to say bad stuff about your projects that you work on, because whether you do a good job about it, that's not the point. Is whether your fans liked it or not. Something could look garbage, but if your fans truly love it, then it's successful. Because it's not about how it looks, it's how it makes people feel. If someone doesn't feel something about something, then they're not going to get anything out of it, no matter how fancy it is, or how well it's done, or how it's supposed to be distributed. So hopefully by episode 7, things get better in Teppen. I highly doubt it, and this might just been an anime that Studio Drive decides just to do to throw something against the wall to make sure to see if it sticks. But I don't like that whatsoever at all. If that's how they do things within their anime, then I'm not going to watch any more anime from the studio from now on. But I am going to be like everybody else who actually are into anime or into games. Play the record all the way from the beginning, all the way to the end, and then make an assessment. But by the time I get to the halfway marker within the anime, by the time I get to the halfway point within season 2, within season 1, by the time I get to the halfway mark in season 1, I should already know where this anime stands. So far, I don't believe I'm at the halfway mark. I believe I'm past the 25% marker, or at the 25% marker, but I'm not at the halfway point. And only when I get to the halfway point will I be able to fully say what I really believe, if this anime is good or not. I can't fully judge this anime based on its first 4 or 5 or 6 episodes. It has to be by episode 10 I could actually judge this anime. If someone judges something simply based on its first couple of episodes, then that person is a dumbass, because you never know if something goes up or something down. That's why I said I'm correcting myself on this one, and I'm saying Lycoris Recoil is actually better than Teppen now, because based on the returning 3 animes, episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, there's nothing to show that this anime is going to progress forward and might even have a future down the road, unless they're able to pick up the pace real fast, and state more information about Grand Prix. And these girls get more funnier as things go. No more of this up and down nonsense. The comedy has to just keep escalating from here on out. So episode 7 has to be funnier. Episode 7 has to give us more information about the girls' history. Episode 7 has to give us more information about the Teppen Grand Prix. Episode 7 has to raise the stakes even higher than episode 6, episode 5, episode 4, episode 3, 2, and 1. So if the stakes aren't raised by episode 7, I don't think this anime is going to make it past its first season. That's where I see things right now. And I believe that I really should have put Lycoris Recoil as the number 1. But I can't judge right now. I might actually still be right about Teppen. But for now, I'm just doing this video simply to correct myself and place Lycoris Recoil as my number 1 for July of 2022 anime. Lycoris Recoil and Yurei Deco as my number 1s for July of 2022. So Teppen has been removed out of my number 1 for July of 2022, and Lycoris Recoil is now my anime for July of 2022, as well as Yurei Deco as my anime for July of 2022.